Well, well, yes, it's the Leslie Jordan. Even though I'm working hard every night on my new show, my trip down the pink carpet, I'll be getting up early, just like you, to be at AIDS Walk, New York, this Sunday. I may be a really big star with tons of star stuff to do, but just like you, I'm committed to the fight against AIDS. Remember, there's still time to raise funds, so keep asking everyone you know to sponsor you at AIDSWalk.net. See you on Sunday, rain or shine.
To hear this message again, press 1. To have your number placed on our Do Not Call list, press 3.
Message erased.
Joe, here we are at Central Park at the AIDS Walk, and you were making some comments about what happens to these kind of events in Manhattan versus Albany.
When people march in Manhattan, it makes a little bit of press, but nothing really gets done. All these marches should be taken up to Albany, you know? And if they had this many people up in Albany, they could press the legislature and they could press the governor to actually do something. You know, to just march. You know, I've been marching for 40 years, and marching, especially in New York City, and nothing really happens. You gotta deal with the legislature and the governor. And
I don't need to hear your negativity. That's why.
Crowds they pay attention to up in Albany, but in New York they're so used to it, nobody really pays attention to it in the city.
So Joe, you know about organizing successful events, concerts and so on, and you were telling me earlier about after the bands were playing, you would have somebody talking about some...
Right, well, what I've always did when I did festivals was I used the entertainment to draw the people, and then between the entertainment you put on speakers, so you entertain and educate, you know? That's the way it should be done. Unfortunately, a lot of the venues that you would do it, they're all shutting them down. Free speech is dying in this country, you know? You try to put on something for free, and the money people jam it right up.
Can you explain what you did, so my viewers who don't know what you did?
Well, for the 20th anniversary of Woodstock, on the 19th year of Woodstock, they asked Michael Lang if Michael Lang was going to do 20th anniversary. And he said he didn't think that people would be interested in Woodstock 20 years later. And
he was wrong, huh?
On the 20th anniversary, a lot of people, you know, went to the Woodstock site. I went up there and I was hanging out because I worked on the original Woodstock. And
wow.
I went up there and everybody was walking around the site going, wouldn't it be nice if it could happen again? Wouldn't it be nice if it could happen again? So I said, let's make it happen. And we sent some girls out to collect from the crowd. We said we were going to build a stage. And the girls went out with a hat and passed it around, and we raised enough money to get some lumber. Then a friend of mine who had a recording studio brought his equipment down, and we put it on stage. I called a bunch of bands, and we started putting bands on. And then it went on the news. After 20 years, there's music on the Woodstock site. And then when it went out on the news that there was, after 20 years, there was music on the Woodstock site, 20,000 people showed up. We wound up doing 7 days of music, and that was when Michael Lang decided Woodstock was viable again.
No kidding.
And,
so
yeah.
You jump-started that.
And we did 21, and then we did 22, and by 23 Michael Lang was starting to talk about doing 25. And that was when the politicians, at first the politicians loved us because we were putting on a free show and the town was making money. By the time the 23rd was coming, the 22nd was coming up, they all started seeing dollars. So then all of a sudden the hippies that were putting on the free show became the dirty hippies that caused trouble. And they started trying to get us out of the way and they found every way they could to sabotage us. They put roadblocks up, they put tractors in the road to stop us from getting there. It was crazy.
Wow. So can I ask you what brought you here today?
A friend of mine died from AIDS, so we're walking for him. And Jake here walked with us.
And what kind of dog is Jake?
Jake is a giant schnauzer. Was pooped.
Have you heard of the Rick Simpson oil?
No.
Run from the cure?
No.
Are you interested? Have you heard of medical marijuana?
Yes.
And THC and all like that?
Is that to support that?
I can give you something.
Sure, absolutely.
You guys want to be on TV? My public access show?
No thanks, actually.
Excuse me. Can you tell me what positive health is? Have you heard of the Rick Simpson oil?
No, I'm actually just related to somebody who chairs. She would probably be able to tell you better.
What happened? Excellent. It's the AIDS walk, and hundreds of thousands of people are walking to raise money for HIV treatment and prevention and research.
Have you heard of Rick Simpson in Canada and the cannabis high concentration THC oil?
No.
I'm going to head out. Are you interested?
Okay. Not right now. No, thank you.
How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm fine too.
So Joe, after I left from that lady that had the dog, can you talk about, you were sort of rapping with her?
Well, I was telling her about Rick Simpson and Run from the Cure and that THC cures cancer. And she said, how come nobody knows about this? And I said, because the government is keeping people from knowing about it. The government is lying to the people and not letting them know the truth. They're hiding the information.
What did she say to that? It's kind of hard for a lot of people to handle.
Yeah, it was hard for her to relate to it.
Yeah.
Most people, very few people want to believe that the government is so evil.
Maybe it's not the government. Maybe it's some part of all of us that sort of blocks out. You know,
no, I think the politicians are so in the pockets, you know.
Yeah, but just a second. Remember, like Ronald Reagan had that thing on his nose?
Yeah.
So if even the politicians aren't knowing what the studies are, then they're innocent too. They're manipulated, and they're suffering, and they're dying. Just, you know what I mean? It's not like they're in on anything that we're not in on. Actually, we know more than they do.
Right, but you know what? So many of them are getting donations for their campaigns from the pharmaceutical companies that they're getting all their information.
So I guess we have to start a new campaign. Just say no to campaign financing.
Right, right.
So I was asking you about the Rick Simpson oil and what Christian Lorette calls the body stone. Right.
Well, I like getting high. And back in I think it was 1969. When some of the best hash at that time was coming in from Afghanistan, and a smuggler I knew brought in.
Now hang on, before we go any farther, what's the difference between hash that you're describing and the Rick Simpson oil as the process of how it's made?
Well, the hash that we had back then was all hand rubbed. What they did was they hold a bud in their hand and they roll it back and forth until their hands get all sticky from the hash, and then they let me put this away. Then they rub their hands together like this until all the hash falls into a wooden bowl.
No kidding. So it's hand rubbed.
Right, and then they knead it together. So it's the oil and resin and pollen all together.
So there's no heating process. None of the decarboxylation.
No.
I see.
And the best hand-rubbed hash back then came from Afghanistan or Nepal. When this hash came in, we had helped this smuggler, me and my partner Charlie, helped the smugglers sell a bunch of it, right? So we were having a celebration after we had sold all this hash. So I made a chocolate cake, and I put an ounce of hash in the chocolate cake. And Charlie made tea. And he put an ounce of hash in the tea. And the guy who had smuggled it in made peanut brittle, and he put an ounce of hash in the peanut brittle. And we were having a party. And all the people that came to our thing that Joe and Charlie make, because we make it really strong. So everybody was afraid to eat this stuff. So while the party was going on, we just kept munching and munching and munching.
Because you liked your cooking.
Yeah. And I liked being high, right? And we got so high that we went catatonic. We laid down, and for 2 days, none of our friends could wake us up. They were all getting paranoid because they couldn't bring us to consciousness, right? And they were getting paranoid, and they were thinking about calling the rescue squad because they thought we were going to die. And
both of you, both you and Charlie.
both me and Charlie, yeah.
So you're different metabolisms, different bodies, and yet, did you eat about the same amount?
Oh yeah, we ate probably about an ounce of hash each of some of the strongest hash that probably ever came in the country, you know.
All hand rubbed and none of it with heat.
Right.
No decarboxylation.
Right.
Okay, this is very interesting, you know, for medical research reasons.
So we went pretty much catatonic. But I was in the most beautiful place. I was in Nirvana. I mean, I was out there, and what I was seeing and experiencing was so beautiful. But I was passed out. My friends got worried about me. So
now you remember the experiences that you had when you were catatonic?
Oh yeah.
And they were beautiful experiences. So you weren't worried about you?
No, I was. When I finished the story, so now they got nervous and they said, well, let's take Joe, and they picked me up and carried me, and I was totally unaware, and they put me in the bathtub, and they turned cold water on me. Now the cold water shocked me back from the most beautiful place I ever was, and I came back pissed off. I said, get the fuck out of my house.
Now what do you think would have happened if they hadn't put the cold water on you? Would you sort of naturally come out of it and just like a dream probably forget it? Maybe the cold water made you remember where you were. There might have been something good about that.
Well, that's possible, but I threw them out of the house, and then I went back in and laid down. And 2 days later, they came back to check up on us, and they woke us up. And after, on the 4th day, we kind of came to, and then we talked about it. And I told them, and Charlie said the same thing. We were in such a beautiful place. We didn't want them to call the rescue squad. We didn't, it was beautiful. I mean, I've done a lot of yoga and meditation and stuff, and that was the highest space I'd ever been.
Now, did you ever get a chance to talk to a professional about this, a medical person, a researcher, maybe a Tim Leary, anybody?
Oh, Tim Leary, I talked with Tim all the time. Tim used to get acid from me sometimes. In fact, one of my best friends was also one of Tim's best friend, a guy named Michael Hollingshead. Michael Hollingshead's the guy who turned on the whole English rock scene. He turned on the Beatles, he turned on the Rolling Stones, he turned on Donovan to LSD, all for the first time. He was the person who talked Tim Leary into taking LSD for the first time. His name was Michael Hollingshead. He wrote a book called The Man Who Turned on the World, and it was banned in England for a while. And I would love to get a copy of it. I once saw it, but I would love to get a copy of it. But Michael was just such a crazy guy.
But don't you think that these are valuable experiences that should be understood by science?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, what you just described is what was described to me by Christian Lorette. He says the worst thing that can happen to you is you get a body stone where your head can't come off the pillow. But in that case, it just means you need to rest and sleep.
Right.
And it will never be like radiation or chemo, where the worst side effects is like you die.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So Joe, I would think that the scientists would be like right on you with their notebooks and thermometers and all the little measurements to find out, because this is radically different. Your buddies thought you were dead, or they were worried, they were calling the emergency.
Right.
And yet that wasn't the case. So wouldn't the scientists figure this out?
The scientists don't want to know the truth. They really don't. Tim originally did LSD experiments for the CIA, and he was giving it to patients they took patients from different hospitals that had no family, so that there was nobody who could know what they were doing, and they were testing LSD. Tim was testing for the CIA, and he was giving it to people to see what the results would be. And then Tim found out that alcoholics, by giving the alcoholics LSD, they were looking at themselves and reevaluating themselves, and it was helping them. He found that people who were heavily depressed, and these were real mental patients that he was doing this with, that real mental patients who had real problems with depression came out of it.
Wasn't Leary a psychoanalyst himself?
Yeah, yeah.
So he knew how to handle an expanded awareness to point them towards what they might not want to look at.
Right.
Don't you think that sometimes if some people take it and they're not prepared, they won't have such a good result?
Well, Tim, one of the things Tim said, and I agree with, is setting has a lot to do with it. If you're in a very bad setting, like if you were in prison, it's not the place to take LSD, or any real psychoactive.
Really?
Because, there's too much paranoia. It's not good to be paranoid when that's happening. If you're in a very positive environment, you get a very positive results from it.
I can't remember what the technical scientific word for paranoia is, but there's a word for it, and it implies that the pure THC can induce that, whereas if you've got the whole plant with the CBDs and other things, it's a balance. Have you ever heard of that?
Well, some of the paranoia comes from people are not used to being that high. So when and also you have to have.
Hey, Sarah!
Sarah! I found you a good spot. You're not gonna come?
Sarah's happy over there. Sorry.
I forgot what we were talking about.
We were talking about paranoia and how does it happen because of the setting, or does it happen because of what you're taking, or because of your preparation?
It's a combination. So some people, they're not used to being that high, and they don't understand it. You know, I definitely think that if people are getting real high, they should have some knowledge of what it's about. You know, and a lot of it has to do with yoga and the understanding of, you know, we have two minds. We have our basic physical mind, which most people dwell in all the time, and then you have your higher mind, which very few people connect with.
Right.
When you take a psychedelic or THC in big doses, most people are not ready to let go of the physical reality to step into this on the spiritual level, you know. And
sometimes when they do, some people lose it on the physical level. They don't operate very coherently. Don't you think some people are better at it than others?
Oh, that's for sure.
What do you attribute that to? Your mother and your father? Because you seem to be pretty focused.
No, I attribute it more to if you're a really good person, you don't mind looking at yourself deep inside. But if you've done a lot of bad things in your life, you don't really want to see yourself really who you are, you know, and that's what it does. It really gives you a glimpse of who you really are.
Have you ever had an experience where you didn't want to look at something, and then as a result of the drug kicking you in to look at it, that
I've always
changed?
been on a spiritual quest, so it never bothered me. But people who are afraid of the spiritual quest have real problems with it, you know. I don't recommend it for everybody. Like I say, in the 60s we used to think if we turned on the whole world, it would be a better place if everybody was seeing what we were seeing. But then I realized I'd hate to see Richard Nixon on LSD, or George Bush for that matter.
So you don't think it would help them?
No, I think they would come up with more evil schemes.
Really? Really?
Yeah, if you're evil, you know, and you get the glimpse of the mystic side of things, why do you think the mystics always kept that mystical knowledge secret?
Why do you think?
Oh, because they, like Christ said, don't lay pearls before swine. You know, too much of that knowledge can be misused. You know, they would be using it to manipulate people.
So to what do you attribute your success, having accomplished so much? I mean, your stories that I heard, that's going to be just chapter 1 of your book, it gave me such a practical insight into the realities of economics, so that when Louis Kelso, who I really admire, in the 50s came up with binary economics, your story was a practical example of his wisdom.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I don't know about that. I'm just a hippie.
So how do you just always wanted to share? Is that what it's about? Sharing? Is that a hippie thing?
Yeah, and trying to make the world a better place. That was really what came out of the 60s. You know, we saw that the world could be a utopia. I mean, there's enough in the world if we shared it, like the starving in Africa. There's no reason that should be happening. The wealth of the world right now, and we got kids with bloated bellies in Africa, you know?
Well, there's certainly enough resources in Africa if they weren't taken away. Africa's a rich country, actually.
Yeah, well, it's greed that's messing it all up. If we could, you know...
But what about the greed within each individual? You know, a lot of people it's always me first. Do you think that's human nature? Can that be overcome, and can psychedelics help you overcome it? Or is it just a memory when you were high and now you're not high, and the only way to get back to that generous state is to take a drug?
No, I actually do believe that at a certain point you can you don't need the drugs. And once you've gained the wisdom, I mean, like I still get high because I enjoy it. But the wisdom, you know, once you really gain the wisdom and you've stepped onto that higher plane where you've gotten the insights, it stays with you. You know, you don't have to keep getting high to hit that level. I enjoyed being high, so I still keep getting high. So
when you were in court, when you were 23 and your wife had the little baby, she's nursing him in the courtroom and stuff, were you high then in the courtroom?
Sometimes.
And when you weren't, did you remember the wisdom, or are you wiser now than you were then? Because that's pretty amazing, that first court case, how you got the prosecutor all worked up and even the jury was on your side. And...
Well, I was believing then, you know. Sometimes when you really believe and you have faith in what... I believed what I was saying was the truth. I really believed it. So the jury saw that I wasn't trying to scam them or get over on them. I was speaking from what I really believed.
Right.
And they wanted to let us go, but the judge threw out the jury, and then another jury wanted to let us go, and then he threw out that jury. And then the third jury was everyone on the jury. I was 23 at the time, and everyone on the jury was 65, and I complained that none of them were my peers.
That's a good point. You're only 23 and they're all 65.
Right. And then my wife got, after this went on for 2 years. Wait, that's them.
If you're tired, I'll carry you the rest of the way for $300. $300? I take Visa. I take checks. Down payments. Hello, sir. Would you like me to carry you the rest of the way?
I appreciate the offer. Amazing. They actually called. They still haven't found a parking space.
Wonder what they're going to do.
Well, I told them we'd meet them
$40 an hour.
I told them we'd meet them on 72nd Street, so they at least know where we're going to be. I'll be right back.
Okay.
You want something to drink?
No, thanks. I'm okay.
Sure.
We're here to support all causes that support AIDS and the general health of the community.
Have you heard of the Rick Simpson oil?
Run
from the cure? How to cure
cannabis, man. Absolutely. We're totally in favor of this.
High concentration, so we need more than measly ounces. We need pounds to render into oil.
Well, I know that there are certain places downtown where you can go and get some, and we're looking for many, many more places.
Do you know how much the oil costs here in New York?
I do not.
Do you know if we were allowed to grow a plant, it would be $5 a pound, and that's about what you need for a 3-month supply for a cancer regime to flush it out of the system.
I know, and that's what they should do, because people can take better care of themselves and make medical decisions for themselves, and decide what's right for them and what isn't right for them, and the government could just mind their own business. Because even if it's not necessarily medicinally helpful, if they want to argue that, at least they'll mellow the people out and let them be comfortable.
This is even more than a high, but that's good. Thank you for...
Thank you.
And check out 12 noon farther down the rabbit hole. You'll be on TV.
Well, thank you. This is wonderful.
Hey,
that was
Martin.
good.
How are you?
Good. Here we are with our...
Can I have a card, please? Hi. Yes.
Thank you.
I want to say this is the man that got me here. He's with St. Mark's Church. Hi there. I'm so glad to be down here.
These are our handmade, hand-painted shirts.
That's beautiful. So what did you learn on the march?
Learned about being with people, a bunch of people, walking. We just had good conversation, I feel like. I came with some folks from the Living Theater.
Where's the Living Theater? And did you design that one too?
Yeah. I did these last night.
We had the best t-shirts.
Oh yeah. Hey, hold the camera and show what I'm watching. How many more?
Hemp THC oil cures cancer. Pharmaceutical companies make. Wow.
I'm here with
and it's like a medical lab coat.
Yeah. I'm here with the people from CAMP, C-A-M-P, Citizens Against Marijuana Prohibition. So if we get the pounds that we need, we can render them into oil. And I just want to thank you, Martin, for getting me to come down here.
Oh, yeah. It's good to see you.
Yeah. And this is Joe Barton.
How you doing?
This is Martin. And the St. Mark's Church folks.
Yeah. Whereabouts?
So Martin, what's Living Theater?
The Living Theater is an organization that's been around for a long time, since the 50s. They did Paradise Now. They recently did a show called Red Noir, which that's how I was introduced to it, through a friend of mine, Tom Walker, at St. Mark's Church. And they're political anarchists doing experiential theater to bring the audience into an experience of, you could call it a temporary autonomous zone, some way of connecting with people to step outside of their ordinary ways of doing things.
And your story about Living Theater?
Oh, I said I went to see Living Theater. I think it was 1969 when they were doing shows in New York. I went to a show. I enjoyed it. It was fun. They got everybody in the audience naked. You know, it was fun.
Do you do that today? Does that still happen?
They try. I think they want it to happen, but it's a little harder.
These days, people are more uptight.
Really?
Yeah.
They don't force it to happen, but they would like for it to happen if it.
It's sort of like a Dionysian kind of thing?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, they have a move that's called the Bacchus dance.
And St. Mark's Church is supportive of the arts this way?
One of the members is, yeah. He introduced me.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, maybe not always, but for me, my experience has been that they work with puppets.
They weren't working with puppets then. It was actually an acting troupe.
Okay.
And it was very free, and it was very a lot of trust with the other actors. They would do things where, you know, you would fall backwards and they would catch you, and you had to learn how to trust each other. You know, it was unique. I can't even explain it. The lady Terry that was a member of it became a member of our commune, and I knew most of the stuff just from her going there. I went a couple times to watch them when they practiced, but I never actually went to their shows. I went to the practices a few times. It was interesting.
Sort of a therapy.
Yeah.
Kind of an expanding the consciousness.
Yeah, but it was
well.
like an acting therapy.
Acting therapy.
Yeah, acting therapy.
I wanted to give a guy 20 years for 2 joints.
Yeah, John Sinclair.
And so you did a concert in St. Mark's?
To help raise money for his legal defense.
And what happened?
Well, we had a concert, we put on some bands, we raised some money and sent it out to Texas to help John Sinclair.
And what happened to him?
He went to jail. I don't remember how long he did, but they convicted him for 2 joints.
Or they just happened to have.
No, they took the name from the book, but the lead singer for the Dharma Bums is real good friends with the Dalai Lama. Hangs out with him, plays for the Dalai Lama. He's like the Dalai Lama's house band. He plays for him all the time.
Let's also check out number 9 Bleecker, the Yippie Cafe.
Oh, I already know them. I know Dana many years.
How are you and Dana? You're friendly?
We're friends, yeah, we're friends, but I prefer not to go to number 9 Bleecker.
You know, this is one of those efforts that takes a little fortitude to overcome the stigma and the fear that is attached to it, because people are afraid of the M word. You know, so it brings a lot of heat. So basically, you know, we've been trying to re-educate the legislature and the public about the cannabis plant that was so discredited in the 1930s, and the marijuana thing was a smokescreen to hide the real issue, which was the economic independence of every farmer in the United States due to hemp, because there was a new machine created called the decorticator in the 1930s, which enabled the process.
Check out the website. Check out our website. Good information.
A rugged piece of machinery from Germany is used to cut fiber crops, as well as being able to cut the stalk into 24-inch pieces for processing. The John Deere 5720 forage harvester and cutter. This unit is used to cut the fiber stalks after the combine has harvested the seed. McDon 9000 Swather has been effective in harvesting grain hemp fiber due to its ability to handle large volumes of product in its wide throat design. Gleaner L2. This combine head has been converted to cut hemp after it's been combined for seed. It uses a 2-drum feeder principle. Side mower. This unit is simple but effective. The retting is optimized for the mower cuts the stalk and lays the fiber in an even, open pattern. The John Deere side mower is also a very effective tool in harvesting. The John Deere 5720 with a modified discharge cuts the full-length stalks and places them in a wind row.
Check out the website. Check out our website. Good information.
They never really outlawed it. They overpassed it, put it out of business.
It's time to defend.
Absolutely. Re-educate. That's what we're here to do. Absolutely.
So you're defending freedom to cultivate, right?
Absolutely. Yes. It was unlawfully taken from us, and so we are reclaiming it back. And so we're trying to re-educate the people to understand that unfortunately they were given a lie and not the truth. So we like to help to dispel that and just enlighten people about the amazing aspects of this plant that's been a part of our society for millions of years. And
there was another.
And New York loves
so
pot.
we just got to stand up, and it's true. They would never say, no one would make a habit would wear a shirt saying New York loves crack, but people who wear New York loves pot. So let's rethink that one out.
Thank you.
The old thing was overturned as unconstitutional, so they had to lock it in and keep it moving forward. So Nixon, who hated the whole marijuana thing, hated all the, the lowlifes, the black, niggers and Jews and this and that. I mean, it's all in his Nixon tapes, which were revealed in 2002. Those came out into the public.
So what kind of action right now do you think would be the most effective?
The most effective right now is for the people to join us in Albany, because what we have is a very unique opportunity. Number one, the whole hemp industry is busting open. 16 states have legalized hemp farming. 14 states have legalized medical marijuana. So the issue is right out there on the table. The economic decline is people farmers are looking for a new crop, people are looking for new jobs, anything. Like they're trying to pay bills and keep their houses and their homes and get the kids to college. And there's nothing. There's just nothing out there. We are being tapped dry. Everything is being regulated, so that we're just going to be standing in soup lines, and when we get chipped, we might get everything back. But so there's like a real push to hinder us and to deprive us. So what we're doing is we found that in 1977, when New York State decriminalized cannabis smoking, which how could they decriminalize a dangerous, toxic substance? Well, I figured, well, there must be some evidence that they had. So I looked in their records, and I went to the original bill, the jacket, in the archives at the Capitol, and I discovered documents that said that scientific evidence clearly shows no significant harm or no harm at all from marijuana use. So that removed the compelling state interest to continue criminal sanctions. But because they wanted to appear tough on crime, they continued criminal sanctions without any evidence there was any danger. So what we're doing is we're going back to the 1977 law, and I have a federal case that I filed against legislature for keeping that Schedule 1 list in place, the listing that's false, it's fraudulent, and that they're essentially catering to the international bankers to finally corner the market on this plant, and they're doing that through, believe it or not, through the hemp legislation, and they're doing it through the medical marijuana measures. So essentially the pharmaceutical industry will corner the market on the medicine, and the farming industry will corner the market on the hemp, and everybody that smokes it is out of luck. They're going to have to just continue to go thrown in jail and try to get the good buds, which will never be turned out by the pharmaceutical industry. And the bill we're facing here in New York State is the worst. Well, New Jersey and New York are kind of in that same area right now.
Why is it the worst?
It's the worst because it has denied home cultivation, which means
you can't grow your own
plant.
You
can't grow your own plant. There were 12
plant?
plants was in the legislation up until last June. And you remember when the coup happened?
Michigan said you can
remember
have
when the New
12.
York State coup, the senators had flipped sides and the Republicans took over again in the Senate? Well, my theory is that they had two bills that they were challenging, the gay bill and the medical marijuana bill. So they wanted to negotiate. So what they did was they flipped two guys over to take over the Republican Senate, so they couldn't pass the medical marijuana bill or the background sound effects there. Those are people crying because they're being arrested.
He's being arrested?
No, I'm just saying that. I'm trying to play it, you know, like, she's being drug off for smoking pot. No. But anyway, so what happened, the coup happened, so the Republicans took over the Senate again. And what ended up happening is, in June, we lost the plants. The Senate won, the Republicans.
Because Michigan says you can grow 12 plants.
Yeah, but not here in New York State. It was up until June. They changed it. They already passed the law through the Assembly.
Nobody knew about it.
No, it was. But that's the same thing that happened with the Marijuana Reform Act in 1977. At first, it was 2.5 ounces. It was only a violation to cultivate. You know, it was actually going in a direction of, you know, realizing, yeah, it's not dangerous. It's what are we getting, throwing people in jail for? Why are we doing this? But the Republicans kept pushing and pushing. I'm not anti-Republican or pro-Democrat or anything. This is just the way it went. The Republicans was controlled by the Senate. I mean, the Senate controlled the Republicans. The Senate was controlled by the Republicans. That was right the first time.
If you were a pharmaceutical that was making a whole ton of money, wouldn't you play both sides against the middle? I mean, wouldn't you imagine that they're invested in both sides?
Well, the money backs all the legislators. I mean, that's the way they get into office.
Now, Starr told me that when you went up to Albany, some of the senators said, you got to help us do the right thing.
Yeah, they
got to show that there's a movement.
Yeah, they said that we essentially
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, what they said is you have to make us do this because their position is we're not sticking our necks out, you're not sticking yours out, why should we?
Right.
So if the people do not go up there while we are rallying this energy to completely eliminate the law, just eliminate it, repeal it. That's our effort, is to just repeal it so people can grow hemp, people can grow, and there's no GMO, the people having control of the plant once again, the way they did for thousands of years.
How often are you rallying?
As often as possible. We're actually beginning a vigil. This next, the 18th is Tuesday. That's going to be our first. Yes.
How can people from New York get up there?
Well, we're going to start a vigil, 24-hour vigil.
We need a shuttle going back and forth. New Yorkers don't have cars.
We do have a place up there.
Don't have cars.
We can accommodate people. They can crash. They can come and go.
Oh, wonderful.
You know, we have a house that's being made available to us that's usually leased out, but it's empty now, so they're letting us use it. And he's also a cannabis activist. So he's been part of this for a number of years and been in all the rallies. So he's made that available, and so people can actually stay overnight there and they can spot each other. And essentially, if we could get 100 to 200 people, which is such a small number, into the Capitol building, into the rotunda, and hang there day after day, we're going to get the governor to listen to us. But if we're not insistent, I mean, is this an emergency situation? I mean, to everybody that's getting arrested, it seems like an emergency situation. To all of their neighbors, to all their friends, their mother, their father, the children. Everybody seems to think this is a horrible thing. But it's very hard to get people up there. You know why? Because, oh my God, I could lose my job. Oh my God, they might take my phone number, my license plate, my picture. I mean, because there are cameras all over the place. So essentially what we have to do is we have to be like the forefathers. We have to risk our life. We have to be willing to lay down our life to secure this right. because the opposition has no resistance. They have nothing. They're standing on lies and myths, and we already have the evidence they had that it kills cancer. This is one of the pieces of evidence they had in 1977.
I don't think they all had it, though. That's what I'm saying. Ronald Reagan wouldn't have had a big skin cancer on his nose if
No,
he
I'm
knew
not
the
talking
studies
about
of
Ronald Reagan. I'm talking about 77. I'm talking about, they suppressed it after 74 when it came out.
I know that.
Nixon wanted his war on drugs, so they suppressed that evidence. But
they
the
might
evidence
have,
is still there.
They might have suppressed evidence to Nixon himself. He may not have known the whole deal. For sure, Reagan didn't, or Reagan wouldn't have had his skin cancer on his
Nixon had. Listen, there's on Nixon's tapes. He is intimidating the head of the commission that was created by Congress to study marijuana. He actually is coming down on Schaefer, who was the tough on crime governor that he had chosen as the head of the commission.
But what I'm saying, Abigail,
and he's threatening him that if he comes back with any evidence or any news that they might legalize marijuana, he said, I don't want to hear nothing about it. He took the report, threw it in the garbage, this is the report, threw it in the garbage and continued his war on drugs. And he was told by Schaefer to stop criminal sanctions or he'd be violating people's civil liberties. So if the government is not going to defend us, we have to defend ourselves. So essentially that's what our banner represents. Our banner represents it is time for us to stand up and defend ourselves. And we have more momentum on our side right now because we've got the farmers moving now. The whole farming movement has aligned itself together, and they are moving as one right now through Hemp History Week, which is where our event is going to be this 18th. It starts 17th to the 23rd. That is all these farmers are going to plant. Last summer they went to the DEA lawn in Washington and planted hemp in their lawn and took an arrest to make a statement. We don't care if you arrest us, we are going to plant our hemp. So essentially because Eric Holder, the Attorney General, and President Obama have not taken any stand to defend the farmers, and they haven't taken any stand to defend the medical marijuana at all. So people are having to stand up and defend themselves. This is a very revolutionary time. This is a time when we either stand up or we bend over.
I started growing a few small seeds. I was hoping to plant them up in Inwood Hill Park.
Right.
Just let them grow.
Well, like George Washington said to his gardener, oh sorry, smack. What he said to his gardener is make the most of the Indian hemp seeds, sow it everywhere. Yeah. So that's what we're encouraging
from our forefathers to you. Abigail, since Martin is on the vestry committee at St. Mark's Church, can you talk about what Jesus means in your life and how it's helped you?
Oh yes, Jesus is my Lord, my Savior, my everything. He's my husband, and I'm betrothed to Him. I mean, I gave my life to Him in 1973. And he joined me in marriage to a man who is one of the original guys that was, handing out LSD and was involved in the San Francisco Oracle and all these things, and he became a Christian. So we had this background history of the counterculture in both of our lives, but Jesus enabled us to have the faith to forsake all, sell everything, get out on the road, live by faith. And the lessons that he has taught us brought us to Albany, because he taught us, one, how to defend ourselves in court. We've been involved in political action right here in New York City. We actually changed the voters' rights for the homeless right here on these streets. And we filed cases, get our children back, which happens to a lot of people here in the city. They lose their children. We got ours back by going into the federal court, which is really unique. A lot of people don't know how to do that, but we have educated ourselves, thanks to the Lord, in standing up for the homeless, ridding the poor out of the hand of the wicked. That's what the Lord says, So there has to be a righteous judge. There has to be people who say, no, you cannot do that. That's not right. And face off the people that are the oppressors. And we're not to get at war with them. We're not to shoot them. We're not to have any kind of physical confrontation. Truth is our weapon. And truth, they cannot. Those that are involved with darkness cannot resist the truth. They flee into the darkness. So what we're doing up in Albany is God has told us to take this hill. He has instructed my husband and I to go to Albany and to establish justice there and to make a stand, take a stand. And he hates the oppression that's happening. Everybody's going to start getting the mark that he prophesied in the book of Revelation, and in order to buy or sell. And that's what this whole whole, it's like the Leviathan is the legal system that has been created, the Levites, the legal system of lawyers to lock in this merchandising. It's like, in other words, it's who's going to collect the rents and deliver the groceries is what every war is about. And so those that want to control the world, the warmongers, are essentially figured out if they took over the food and the whole land ownership through devious means by giving farmers loans that they could not pay, by pulling back on their crops and controlling where their crops could be marketed. So essentially that's one of the ways. And then the food, the FDA came about the same time marijuana was outlawed, cannabis was outlawed. So essentially now what we're seeing is all the food is being poisoned, and the FDA is supposed to be about pure food and drugs, and is far from that. It's not pure food, it's not pure drugs. A drug is actually something that actually makes you better. Yeah. They've given it a bad name. Yes, it's a medicine. So cannabis is one of the 4 medicines that were used throughout time. It was coca, opium, alcohol, and cannabis. And cannabis is one of the few things that actually cured you. It was a cure for many ailments, and it was a preventative as well.
But if you don't live by bread alone, probably you don't live by anything alone. That's what I meant about the faith. You know,
yes, well, the fact
of the matter is, so that you can keep loving at a time when people are so overwhelmed by the corruption and the negativity. I mean, some people are so depressed they can't handle anymore.
Well, let me give you an encouraging word. The wilderness, lesson of the wilderness, when the children of Israel were taken into the wilderness, they were taken out there where there was nothing except one thing, and that was God. God was out there. And they were so used to and so hung up by the world and all the things of the world, the food, the sex, the comfort, all the things that we look forward to and work for hard all our life. We don't have to work for God. He's with us. He's in our life. So what he essentially was doing was he was showing them the real promised land. You don't have to eat. You don't have to drink. He was talking, remember when Jesus said, I will give you something you don't ever have to thirst again? Yeah. Well, people really have to understand what's going on here. In the last days it says we have to make it through the fire. What is the fire? Our doubt. The fire is what can consume us, is our doubt, our fear, our apprehension, our dread of starving to death, freezing to death, dying. So when we overcome that, we realize we don't need food, we don't need drink, and I've tested it out, and God has shown me that this is the case. And if you believe in your mind you can't do something, when you say the words, I can't, that's a powerful statement. You're the only one stopping yourself from being able to do something.
So presenting Picasso at the La Palma Zoo, a comedy by Steve Martin, a young Picasso.
So tell me, you used to want to be unknown, and now because of your court case, you're sort of switching strategies?
Right, well now I need the publicity because for many years I tried to stay underground because, anybody selling marijuana is really at risk, so I tried to stay underground and have as little publicity as possible. But now that I got this court case going and I'm really fighting the law, I need all the publicity I can get because we got to change the law to get people out of jail. It's just too many people suffering in jail, too many children being taken away from parents. It's time to stop it. It's time to take a stand.
Right.
Is he good at that?
No. I don't know.
Hey Dana, easy will. What these guys have done is all these are products that we buy in our stores, and they're all sponsoring this so that we can have people in the United States set up
Paula told me a little bit about it.
What part of my story do you want to know?
She said you were growing.
You have to come over and see the PVD.
Yeah, I was growing.
If I just watch the hour long, if I watch the duration of that, the one that's online, I'll get this. No, that one's not together yet.
No, the one that she put on, I haven't even seen that one. I only saw.
No, it's what we did this morning.
Paul's son.
Oh, the one that you have online was the same one Nathan had on his.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
I saw
you
that.
Speaking with Abigail in Albany.
Yeah, I saw that one, the one that Nathan has. That was just us talking up in Albany.
So Abigail, what's it like out here? Are people open? Or?
Well, if you can find somebody that speaks English, that's a challenge.
Wow, so you get literature in other languages.
I gotta sit down for a while, my back's killing me.
Oh, you need more hemp oil. Legalize that stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, speaking of hemp oil, I was looking for a
¿Para dónde quieren ir? Arriba o para
Oh, you should show up. Can you do an extra? Oh, yes. Would you like more? Check out our website. We're literally
You guys have any questions?
Here's a little commodity.
What's that, Abigail?
We took the Ed Rosenthal's bud calendar of the winning flowers, and we made
Tell me
light
about
switch.
what winning flowers are.
Well, this is the real medicine. Don't let anyone deceive you. This is what kills cancer. This is just one variety.
Do you sell these?
Yeah.
How much are they?
Well, they're fundraisers, so they're $10 each or 2 for $15.
So people know when they put their light on that they're helping.
Oh
a good
yeah,
cause.
isn't it beautiful? I mean, this is God's creation.
Turn on the light. So that shows the THC-rich plant.
Yes, the crystals.
Who designed this?
We did. We just, Star came up with the idea, and then I made them. And essentially, they're just beautiful art, and it's God's creation, and they're just,
Do you have them on your store, in your website?
Not yet. We haven't got them up on there yet.
Great idea. Turn on the light.
Turn on the light, that's right.
Non-violence.
And all that information.
Let me help.
Really valid stuff, and not everybody knows.
Thinking there's no marijuana smokers in Manhattan?
Yeah. It's like they're either all hiding because there's cameras on every uplifted thing here. I don't know.
So it could break at a moment's notice. I mean, I'm sure in Kentucky more than half the people are smoking. So
yeah, like when we first got to Albany 2 years ago, people were afraid of us, and now they embrace us. So I think that we face the issue head on. We're not hiding like everybody wants to hide and say, oh, this is not about getting high. The fact of the matter is that people get high every day on all kinds of things, alcohol and even their medicines, So the whole thing is that since New York State recognized that it's not dangerous and people are just merely smoking marijuana with their friends, this is the wording that they use. So essentially, New York State doesn't think there's anything wrong with it. They're obviously catering
explain that. In 1977, something happened. I was talking to Christian Lorette, and I wasn't quite sure of the sequence. In 74, the University of Virginia did a study. It's questionable whether Nixon knew about it or not.
Right.
I'm just saying that if you don't have the benefit of the knowledge, I call that you're still in ignorance.
Yes.
And that's what I meant about the love of Jesus.
Yes.
That everybody deserves a break.
Yes, exactly.
Even those we hate.
Right.
It turns out they were really ignorant.
Right. And in my specific situation, where my federal case is coming against certain legislators, it's because they have known and they did know. And the man that wrote the the Marijuana Reform Act in 1977 is the same man he was the codes chair.
What's his name?
Richard Godfrey. He is now the health chair. And now he's got the medical marijuana bill. He wrote both bills. And so he has known since the 1970s that it kills cancer. So instead of standing against anyone that would want to continue criminal sanctions, since he had the evidence, he could have said, no, we can't do that.
Now, what we discussed, Joe and I and Christian, was that he said I don't know if it was he, that law said based on scientific evidence. And the question is, can we find the evidence that they were talking about?
Yes, I have.
And did they cite it when they made that paper or statement?
No, this is one of the issues in my federal case. I want the judge to have them come into the court and explain to me what evidence they had.
In 1977.
What evidence did they have that said it was not dangerous, and why did they take my plant and arrest me in Albany if it's not dangerous? I was just walking down the street carrying a plant. So my question is, what purpose could they possibly be serving in taking this plant away from me if it's not dangerous? So this is why I'm challenging them. And if they do think it's dangerous, since maybe they've changed their mind since 1977, what evidence do they have now that it's dangerous?
And then there's the fact that there's 11 patents of its medicinal value,
right.
So how can it be on Schedule 1?
Right.
So we have a lot of contradictions.
Yes, we do. That's why I say they have no standing.
So even people who haven't been arrested as citizens could start to do proceedings. Carl Pearson was talking about that you can challenge the law before there's any question about whether you've broken it or not.
Right.
And it seems as though any human being right now who's faced with the possibility of getting cancer, because it's an alarming rate.
1 in 3 right now.
Yeah, should be interested in supporting these kinds of...
if they knew, they would be.
Yeah.
If they knew, they would be. Absolutely.
So it's a matter of education.
It's a matter of education, getting the word out. Absolutely. You're helping to do that.
Thank you, Abigail.
You're welcome. Thank
you. They're playing guitar music, so we're going to go. You want to join us?
On Facebook, please.
This combine head has been converted to cut hemp after it's been combined for seed. It uses a 2-drum feeder principle. Side mower. This unit is simple but effective. The retting is optimized for the mower cuts the stalk and lays the fiber in an even, open pattern. The John Deere side mower is also a very effective tool in harvesting.